In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Mr. Within lecture. You got to hear it, if humorously in a silly way, you know, after this life, they were like, yo, man, did you get to hear a Mr. Within lecture when you were alive in history? You got to. So you got to hear a Mr. Within lecture, you know. you know and the whole point of me giving this talk is so you can hear it. Okay, I don't even care if the concepts that make sense, you just gotta hear it. No, I'm joking. Okay, on a serious note though, I got stuff to say today, and I hope that the viewers, regardless of what they're doing, whether they're at work or something, prioritize the subconscious understanding of the concepts I share. So dear viewers, I actually wanted to give a lecture. I had a thought about this. I haven't done this. I wanted to give a lecture on sexuality. Okay? And I was like, man, I feel too silly for this. I can't. So I decided to give a lecture on silliness. And a question that has been on any silly person's mind is, how silly is silliness? And I want to make a claim and an argument as someone who does have silly character traits, right? I'm like, I say it this way. I'm like a telescope. Things that I see deeply, I take seriously, but the surface of reality, I'm kind of silly with. Okay, so think of it this way: short-term strategy, silliness; long-term strategy, seriousness. Now, what's very fascinating is that if you ever care about information, okay, some souls are not just here to physically be active, they're here to organize and compartmentalize the information that is being a position in reality, okay? So, I want to give a lecture on silliness, a lecture that in some sense is unheard of, I believe. I'm going to make a claim that silliness is one of the most important things and it will protect the human species against epistemic entropy. So just to give you a sense, if you ask me what is epistemic entropy, I will be like, hey, do you know what entropy means? Do you know what epistemic means? Epistemic means it has to do with knowledge. Entropy means the system defeats itself. The system is defeated. Okay? The system can't contain itself. In some sense, it crumbles down on itself. Right? Epistemic entropy, just like there's an entropy to the cosmos, and as a Muslim, there's an end of days, right? Epistemic entropy is the end of knowledge, and it's when a species loses sight of truth to the degree that it cannot find it anymore. Now, how does silliness help here? I notice in my own behavior that anytime I either reach a conclusion of something, or I've understood something, or I am in full control of something, it's easy to be silly. Do you understand? That means, imagine a general has come from war and has won the war, and this little kid runs up to the general and says, I'm scared. And the general in some sense laughs, because the main thing the kid didn't know about, like, it's about intensities of reality, folks. This is what you will realize, that what you have it different than other beings is at what sort of intensity you have held your life. And there's so many angles to this, because At what do you like? With what intensity do you perceive yourself? With what intensity do others perceive you, or do you perceive others? And with what intensity do you perceive the world? For example, I'll give you a fictional example. We had Tarzan from Disney. This dude, when it came to himself, there was an intensity. When it came to the world, there wasn't intensity, but there was intensity for him when he tried to act human. And so human beings are behaving in a specific way because on some level we cannot ignore. We're like, yo, we're in a world, we're in this place. What are all the creatures that are here, and what is the difference? What are things that this creature can do that other creatures can't do? How silly is silliness? I have imagined scenarios. Imagine there's this, what do you call it? Silliness is in some sense, I guess, I don't know. How do I explain it? There's a dictionary definition here. Let's start from there. So, having or showing a lack of common sense or judgment, absurd and foolishness, ridiculously trivial or frivolous, used to convey that an activity or process has been engaged in such a degree that someone is no longer capable of thinking or acting sensibly. Guys, it's a matter of can being foolish. I'll say it this way: silliness is a measure of reality, and it's a measure of reality that in some sense is taking away its intensity. If somebody comes and says, yo man, we're all in a simulation, what should we do you know what I mean? Right? And it's like it's an intense situation, it's an intense question, right? But silliness comes and says, man, there isn't much we can do, we just simulate inside a simulation, or find the truth, right? So in some sense it has to do with intensity. My personal experience with silliness, I'm talking about it like it's like, yo man, guys, I've been to war, I've been in the silliest conversation. So think of it this way: the silly people among you are more playful. By being more playful, their antenna has access to more reality. They end up in a better place. I have been in so many situations in life, and I am certain playful people have VIP access to reality. Oh yeah, 100%. That means the moment you take something seriously, you're in some sense chained by something. But if you're playful, in some sense the bullets don't hit you. That means an ability of being able to look at yourself and not take yourself seriously. I mean, it's very contextual. If somebody comes and reduces my value, insults me, or diminishes me, I just look at them because I already know the value. I know the truth of the situation. So in some sense, I can play along and be silly. You know, there's been times when when there's been like views against me, and I'm like, yo man, I want to be on the team that's against. Man, I just I don't have internet now. My laptop has limited amount of tracks. I've heard all of them. I don't know what to play. My beloved species, I'm trying to say that if you're a silly person, right, it doesn't mean you're valueless. We're raised in a world that behaves in a certain way. I want every human being that's born to understand you have a DNA nobody else has. You have access to views on life that nobody else has, right? And you got to understand that this world, the human world, speaks a human language. In some sense, it doesn't matter how deep or how different, like it's like we're all different beings, but we're in a civilization for clones. Okay, and we have to clone ourselves in archetypes that society acknowledges to have a value. You know, the biggest thing in any game, so you're also, as like, even though simultaneously you're listening to, like, Mr. Within podcaster, serious podcaster guy, also, you know, MBA candidate, and I work in the modular housing sector industry. But aside from that, you're listening to someone who's also reached Plat 2 as a Xerath player in this game, League of Legends. That's not per se the easiest thing to do. In attaining that game, that status in that game, I came to understand something about games in general. Okay, and that the most important thing about a game is your position, because your starting position sets your value. So, for example, in this game of life, we have, like, there's like Baron Trump, a child of a trillionaire and president. Do you know what I mean? So that's the position that being has. But the interesting thing about a game is that each position has its own reality to engage with. It doesn't matter if this was back in the day, you were a peasant boy who wanted to be a king, or if you were a prince who wanted to be a king, or if you were actually a king. The light of reality provides a contrast that the darkness doesn't. You know, sometimes silliness may appear as foolishness, but everything in life is like, you have these beings, they're making decisions. Their decisions are based on their awareness. Their awareness compared to each other can be either more complete or incomplete. That means if I go to a mechanical engineer and I'm like, explain this mechanism to me, right, of like a machine or something, right, the awareness that that mechanical engineer has can go on from telling me the measurement, the dimensions, the exact material, its purpose, and all of this, the process, right? So to be honest, anything we are not familiar is silly, right? So if imagine back in the day, right, Galileo, he made a telescope, saw the moons of Jupiter, looked at people, and were like, yo, guys, we're spinning around the earth, around the sun. The sun is not spinning around the earth. And so everybody was like, that's so silly, man. We see the sun rise from, the east to the west, or the west to the east. From the west to the east, right? So it's like a matter of reality. Silliness is about where your position in reality. Okay? If you tell someone, yo man, what's 2 plus 2? And they're like, it's anything you want it to be, that's like silliness. Why? Right? Because it ignores the initial reality, but sometimes the initial reality can be simulated, and those who are ignoring it are further ahead. Do you know? That means imagine that this life, how many people have lived ahead of us? You know, and I haven't like heard of accounts of people with near death experiences. I heard one, but I'm not that convinced. I have a sense that this world takes you in accordance to the values you express, which are your decisions. You know, I as a soul in this world, I am Muslim. I chose that. I was raised in it, but I was not Muslim. I was committing the biggest sin in Islam, which was shirk. I was working with moderators. I did not have total allegiance to the system admin only. Now, if you ask me about the nature of reality, I am not alone. The difference between Amin Jabir Ansari, between Mr. Within in 2023 and the Mr. Within you're hearing now, is that I shifted my perspective from being on a rock in the middle of nowhere to being, it has been confirmed for me that there is a system admin here, that our positions and placement in reality are important and in a sort of destined way strategic. Okay, because really as a soul, as you become more conscious of this realm, you are not in competition with people, which is very hard to believe. That's not the real game. The real game is not like, yo man, you won against the others and you're the best player in the game. No, no, no. The intention of the game of human life, as at one, you're hearing one person's view. There's been 8 billion and countless human beings on this planet, but I will tell you that in some sense, sometimes it's very important to be silly, because in silliness, multiple realities are still authorized. I'll give you an example of the power of silliness. Right now, humans are so silly, okay, that if, for example, an extraterrestrial, right, landed, this is hypothetical sci-fi scenario, but imagine an extraterrestrial landed at a university like fraternity, okay, right, like it would be in some sense like, why is that silly? Why would an alien be there? What's even more sillier, the alien is doing a keg stand with the fraternity, okay, at the fraternity. So it's so out of position for an extraterrestrial to do a keg stand that it is silly. Okay? Silliness is just an unfamiliarized context. Do you know? Maybe for creatures that used to use 4 limbs, you know, standing on 2 legs and accessing greater sight was like, you know, silly. So many things have been silly. You know, all great ideas. There were people who are like, yo, man, it's not going to happen. I don't see it. Well, guess what? That person didn't see it. And so many great ideas happen. The silly among you are fearless enough to be able to see more than their reality. You know, and really typically beings that have access to more than one reference of reality, you can be silly, right? Silliness is if somebody says, is silliness trying to not take responsibility for the intensity of a moment? I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you wonder, how intense does the moment have to be? How many fights have been disarmed through silliness? Like, we don't know the power of a silly politician. Do you know? Because the politicians are all in a sort of serious archetype. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, it doesn't matter. I mean, there 100% must have been silly politicians from the perspective of the people, but to themselves, do you understand? I'm trying to tell you that this life is not, you don't just succeed based on what you know. It's honestly a game, and in a game, resource allocation and positioning are the most important things. How you position yourself in a game of reality. So for me personally, in explorations of deep ideas, and there's, okay, let me say it this way: silliness. There's a silliness in the outer realms in front of your eyes. Imagine a clown nose making noise, honking, right? So that's external silliness. Internal silliness is way more intense and way more required, because your life behind your eyes, your hidden inner life, is very different than your external unhidden outer life. Okay? And if somebody was to tell me what's the difference between being a silly body embodiment and a silly mind, a silly mind is when you live as a mind, you actually have an ability to position your idea. Okay? That means, as a physical being, my body is given. Okay? I cannot, like, this is my physical existence. It exists once in this way. But when it comes to my mind, existence is starting from scratch. You know how many days I've woken up and I've had feelings that have rendered me as different ideas to myself? So silliness in the inner realms is required for deep thinkers. Let me tell you why. Because it scares you. It's a defense mechanism against the incomprehensible that scares you. That's what silliness is. Do you know? That means, like, you don't know what to make of it. You don't know how to connect reality. Like, imagine you're in one reality and suddenly another reality that is so different and bizarre appears. The only way you can connect it, and silliness is the connection of the meaninglessness of two realities, rather than, truth being the meaningful connection of both those realities. Right? So for me personally, when I've had very deep ideas, and you know how an idea gets deep, most people talk about concepts. You got to talk about context. Smart people are thinking contextually. Average people are thinking conceptually. They look at somewhere and they're like, look, I see a concept. Nice, I've recognized the concept in this world. Well, guess what? Those who recognize the context understand how all the concepts in that context move. The most powerful among you are the context aware, not the conceptually aware. This life, it gives you two options. And these two options, I feel, do have an evolutionary component. You either bite into reality, you dive into it, you enter reality, or you distance yourself from reality. There is no middle way. Those in the middle way are not on earth. When the Buddha told people to take the middle path, the middle way, when the yogic traditions urged the seekers to go towards samadhi, they were not solving the problem. They were just relocating you. They're like, yo, man, these spiritual new age gurus, are they solving the problem? No, they're just like people who are like, guys, enter this room and you can feel like God. That's all they're doing. They're selling you a room where if you don't identify with anything, your mind concludes it's everything and you think everything is God. It is not the case. There is a system admin to this reality. This system admin's presence is beyond the conceptual honor. It means we are not in an empty place, which is so convenient and easy and also impossible. You know, how can the awareness to emptiness be empty? There's an awareness there. There is movement in this world. There is forces that move forms, and we have identified with the form too long, and the species is now recognizing that even though they trained us and conditioned us and forced us to treat reality as a noun, we have remembered it is a verb. We have remembered that it is not just the life of collections of atoms. It is the life of forces that have never expressed in this realm in this way until now. And sometimes when you go to talk about silliness, you cannot avoid the truth that you're actually seeing. Okay, for me, why did I tell you that I'm like a telescope? I take deep ideas seriously. I don't take the simple things that are in front of me that seriously. It is because the simulated nature of this world has terrorized me years ago when I discovered the unknown aspect of it. Okay? And what does that terror mean? Okay, see, I want you to imagine there are some people that something scary comes towards them. Okay? That means they don't move, something scary happens to them. And there are some people who they go somewhere scary and something scary happens to them. To be a human mind, to fathom the exact human position, you don't understand. People are like, yo, man, it's like philosophers. Who cares about a philosopher? You don't understand what the philosophers among you have seen of the conceptual depth of what is actually going on and what this means. Do you understand? That means, like, there is silliness as long as there's safety. When safety is gone, your silliness, it might disarm the opponent momentarily, but it does not help. You see, I believe every single human being soul is way more powerful than it has been authorized to act here. And I believe it doesn't matter if you show me a 90-year-old man or a 9-year-old kid. Okay? There is an intensity in the human system. Okay? And in some sense, I kind of want to say the power of cornered animal psychology. Okay? When an animal is cornered, it goes berserk. Okay? Now, imagine you actually pay attention to reality and you begin noticing that berserk characteristic in reality. Okay? I'm saying that every person has an ability to go berserk. Okay? There was one situation in my life which was a fight. And I am probably the most, personality-wise, kind of agreeable, non-confrontational person. Okay? Because I function more as, I feel like I'm living as a force than a body. The body is just a position. The mind is what is giving this position value. Right? So if you ask me right now, hey man, you've lived around 12,000 days on this planet. Do you identify as a body or a mind? I'll be like, I am 100% of force here. And really what you realize, this is the intensity that even silliness cannot save you from. Think of it, or let me say it this way. You want to know the silliest thing in existence? One of the silliest things. One of the silliest things in existence is how it's an unknown place. It's an unknown place. And we have told stories over it. So if anybody on this planet, they say, yo man, I know the world, I know Earth, right? Or let's say in the future you have extraterrestrial like tourists, okay? And extraterrestrials come as tourists on Earth and they see it and they leave and they go back to their home planet and they're like, there's people on their home planet are like, yo man, did you get to see Earth? And the person's like, man, I just got to see this unknown planet that the creatures on it had named it, had gave it so much meaning and forgotten that they had given it meaning, and their children were raised to learn that meaning. Do you know what it is? It's like me entering somewhere nobody has ever been there, as the first person there, naming that place and giving, not just naming, giving it attributes, and then millions of just countless people after me coming into that room and treating that place in accordance to the attributes I've given it. It horrifies you. Do you know what I mean? So to me, if we really want to be silly, or if we really want to be serious, it's a silly place. Bunch of organisms telling themselves stories, fighting over whose story has the correct value, assigns the correct value to reality. That means every person I've seen, and yes, there is the argument that yes, there is men and there's women, you know, there's biological differences in being a member of a species, but to be honest, if I was to wonder about it, it's like, this is strange, but every person is an unknown force. You're just shaped. You just have a body, but you're an unknown force that is moving that body. And reality, more and more, it's about access. That means imagine you have access to a library, but in some sense that library is limited. Or imagine you open your eyes in a library. Imagine right now you've opened your eyes in a library called Earth. Okay, and you've looked at the books and you're like, wait a minute, these books have been authored by the humans. Like, thank God there's like Revelation, do you know? But it's like most books are human reality limited. You know, the reason they say you cannot recreate a book similar to the Holy Quran now is simply because the intensity of awareness that was there and the confidence of that awareness. People don't know this. Islam is the only religion that points to time travelers, time traveling. It includes everything in it. It's in its next level to the degree of back then they had this range of awareness. Do you know what I mean? That means I wouldn't be surprised if they couldn't visualize it, but they could conceptualize it. People were walking horizontally. They looked at the sky back in the day. They saw a house in front of them. It wasn't too far-fetched to look at the sky and wonder if your house was in the clouds. The mind could conceptualize that. So anyways, where I'm going with this, folks, and to kind of end it, is that silliness can be seen as a defense mechanism against the incomprehensible, against that which is too deep, that you have to contain it in some way. Silliness can be a bridge between realities. Often in human experience, silliness gives us comfort. Why? Because humans are projecting their self. Let me tell you what being a human being is, what having a human mind is like. It's like you walk into a room filled with different people, and before those people communicate or act, they are aspects of you. No one has seen the other. They have seen what is familiar to themselves. They have seen their own neural patterns verified in the other. That's how you like someone. You know, it's like something that's real to you. They're doing it and they're like, okay, that person's real to me. right? And then if they do something you're trying to do, like usually when in my books, when someone's more real than me, I like that person. Do you know? When I say more real, I mean, of course, now my preference has changed to awareness. It's like first you were looking for a girl who had beautiful eyes, okay, externally, and now you're looking for a girl who has beautiful eyes internally. It's not. It's like, see, your body is something. Your mind is the awareness to all things. And the depth of your mind suggests the depth of your being, right? And what is more beautiful? It's like, yo, man, what's the best way to imagine life was an ocean? Some people only see the surface. They don't get to see it has deeper aspects to it. They don't get to see that it has back rooms, okay? That it has sidelines, that it has benches, that right now we don't know. Like, sure, I might just be an individual deciding what happens to me. I don't know how the exact administrative organizational codes and principles and geometry and destined programs of the higher realms. As a Muslim, I know that I am in the lower world. I also know that I'm inside a simulated testing zone. I also know that there's a system admin that is testing its creation to see if they can remember the original or the simulation was too good. That means it's as if God, in some sense, has commanded this soul to come into existence. Okay, has brought this soul, okay, if you really want the full story, it's way more impressive. Do you know why we have so many people in media now? Media was destined, by the way, right? And theologically, it can be known. The human soul, I'm not talking about your body, I'm talking about your soul. The human soul was commanded into existence by an inconceivable, unfathomable admin, system admin. This system admin commanded the existence of a user in this system, the soul, and commanded this user in front of all creation to say all the divine names. This is before Adam and Eve make their mistake. That means God created Adam and Eve. God brought Adam and Eve in front of all creation. God commanded Adam and Eve into existence. God commanded the human soul to perform and say all the divine names, which means gave it cosmic awareness, an ability. And then all creation bowed except a moderator. And man has been caught in actually the argument between a mod and a system admin. That means, does God love man creation more, or does God love the system admin? Because on some level they're all God's creation. Do you understand? And the God could have just instantly commanded the non-existence of the moderator. That went against, because on this planet, it's not as easy as just a human force in the middle of nowhere. There are anti-human forces. Your attention to how reality is being is the starting point. Ladies and gentlemen, the silly among you, you are blessed. Anybody who has silliness around them, you are being blessed. The intensity of this realm is, 1, unimaginable. 2, it shakes you. The moment you realize, just this was the most intense moment of my life, okay? This is when I think I actually became mature as a soul, okay? When I just reached this point where I'm like, what if everybody missed the mark? What if nobody knows? What if, even if they know, what if they don't care to share what they know even? So you have to look at this world and be like, okay, It's an unknown place. Everybody's telling stories, and their happiness is just their story manifesting in front of them. That's the happiness the human species is seeking. It does not seek clarity of original position of being. It's just like, yeah, another day I've appeared as an existential being. I got to do these looping survival actions. I got to sacrifice free will to, in some sense, continue in this system. But what is this system? That's the question. It's like you've been living in this world. What is this world? Where have you been living? What have you been doing here? Right? And it's the depth of that value. Do you understand? It's like if I ask myself, yo man, what's the value of my talk? And then that's the hilarious thing. Right? Because it has a value to the one who's giving it. It has a value to the others who are hearing it. It will have a value to cultural programs in the future that are different than now who will hear it. Right? I decided, like, my task was to give 10,000 talks. Okay? But something funny? I checked it. I think I checked it years ago. I think I had like 176,000 views on the channel in total, like overall, all the views. Right? And I was like, okay, man, if there was like, let's say 100,000 different people who who heard my lectures, that means there's 100,000 versions of my lectures going on in reality. Do you understand? Your ears render what you receive differently. You're not just a human being that's existing. You are, think of it this way, a collected server. You're a server that has your inner life is your private server where you have been formulating reality. Okay, and there's many ways it functions. It's not designed so all of us are cloned in one attitude in the same way. Can you imagine if everybody was polite? That'd be a scary world. Do you know what I mean? And can you imagine every day everybody was just one emotion? That'd be a scary place. Guys, there's nothing silly, or excuse me, nothing silly. I mean, like, what is existence? You're born for 100 years. You enter this place that you didn't create. You don't know. You didn't even create yourself. At some point, your earliest memory is like you suddenly being an idea already, right? And as you live in this life, so many things are unknown. That means, to be honest, it's way more plausible for me to consider myself as an unknown being than a known being. That means I'm identifying as an unknown being. That seems to be honest. They're like, be honest, but also live in a simulated story of a world. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't be both. I can't be the simulated ego of my free will's preference, whatever, compared to actually looking at it and being like, all right, what if the test is not how you deal with knowledge? What if the test of this world is how you deal with the unknown? What if you are being tested on not what you know, which is the common view of a test? What if you're being tested on how you handled everything you didn't know? Do you even have a feeling for that? Do you have a feeling like what you don't know? For me, it has taunted me. If I am to explain to people, if I have any sort of OCD, it's like the OCD of somebody being born somewhere where the information doesn't explain it. It doesn't satisfy it. Do you know? Anybody can walk up to me and tell me, introduce themselves as any name to me. How would I know that's their actual name or not? In the same way, you have opened your eyes in some culture, some position in this world, and they're like, all right, child that has no information on reality, let me tell you what's going on. Memorize all this shit, which you're not going to need. And then eventually you're going to ask the question again, right? Eventually you have to start from scratch and comprehend the whole thing again. It doesn't matter what they told you. Because how can you be certain? For me, I don't know. I have lived in so many ways on this planet that I cannot claim one as absolute. Every time people have asked me, how are you or who are you, the answer has been like, yo, man, here, just hear something and let the moment go on, because the depth of it is so unknown that it's like, if you want to know what the wisest state is, Socrates realized it. He was so ahead of his time. He's like, the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. Okay? The only true knowledge is the realization that of the unknown that surrounds all knowledge. Yeah, I know. You woke up today not thinking somebody's going to point out that everything's happening in an unknown place. And we've chosen how to know it. What is value then? Value is just the stories that in some sense happen. Anyways, I notice I use, so anytime, guys, in my lecture you hear me be silly, I'm telling you, it's a deep, I've come into contact with depth that I don't know what to do. Because in the inner realms, you do meet ways that reality state. So think of it this way. In the outer realms, you meet people. In the inner realm, you meet states of being. That means a mind is living with way more access to possible reality than the body. Anyways, folks, I hope this lecture, was interesting for you. I'm going to end it here, to be honest. I guess one last thing I'll say is, how do you respond to the unknown? It's silly to me because the whole civilizational system has forgotten that the mind is here to live ahead. That means the issue is there's 8 billion human minds on the planet, and the issue is all of them are living for their future self. They are not living for the future self of the species. Why is this so damn difficult to kind of have a species realize? You start in this life and there's ranks, okay? First rank, you become responsible for your body. Second rank, you become responsible for your mind. Third rank, you become responsible for your world. Fourth rank, you become responsible for the future of your world. Fifth rank, you notice that the future of your world returns to the system admin. These are just, just numerological rankings I gave, but that's how it is, guys. The most advanced beings are not the most powerful in the outer realms. They are actually those who have been rejected from the inner realms sometimes. That means the system admin's like, all right, man, you seem to have an interest in worldly life. Here, we'll give you your worldly fun. But if you have interest in that which is beyond the world, it is beyond worldly fun, okay? Then you are actually getting into destiny. So think of it this way. You are responsible for yourself, for your known self, and then you become responsible for your unknown self, okay? Think of it this way. There's self, there's others, there's world. And then there's system admin. 4 corners, okay, to reality. You become responsible for your known self, and for your unknown self. Most people are like this. Then you become, after you've attained this responsibility and consciousness, you become responsible for others. Yes, you do. Right? The most amazing people on this planet are so smart and ahead and conscious than the rest that they're making the lives of the rest easier by living ahead. Okay? There is incredible smart people, and even if they just have an analytical metric of measurement, right? It's still they still do it. Why? Because it's easy, right? So for me, the difference between smart and foolish people, or whenever someone's smarter than me in something, right? It's that it comes to them easier. Okay, it comes to them easier. But it doesn't mean their reality is easy, because if sword fighting is easy, you're meant for a different reality. So talent is proof that you are destined for a higher game. Okay? That means if I see a 6-year-old playing like Flight of the Bumblebee on piano, right? I know that at the age of 6, that child prodigy is performing at like a professional level. So when it does become professional, it will be fun. It will have an awareness nobody has. Sometimes I look at life and my regrets are fictional. I'm like, yo, man, if I had done this when I was young, right, I would have been this now. If I had, done martial arts right now, maybe I could have, like, taught people martial arts in my wisdom lectures. It's like, hi guys, we're gonna in some sense, talk about the depth of the meaning of reality, and also we're going to speak about, hand positions and Wing Chun, and how you're supposed to, you know, not, not, tense your muscles right before you punch. I don't know, guys. I'm just saying that it's an unknown world. It's an unknown place. We're all getting by. Egos are fictional creations. Fiction that is taken as real, intentionally, and there's a superiority to this realm, which is another way of saying, don't in no way, like, you're a noob. If you think this world is empty, you're a noob. No offense, but the Buddha was an incredible human being, but the Buddha, he was the noob that made us realize we're all noobs. Okay, in the sense of by taking people to the awareness that the nature of an object is empty, he rendered the meaning of life to be personal. And when you also realize, in the same way you look at an object and you give it meaning, you're looking at yourself and you're giving it meaning, and you realize you can not only just give different meanings, but you have to realize you're beyond meaning. This is why in Buddhism, I'm not Buddhist, but in Buddhism, and in Zen traditions, they would be like, kill the Buddha. Why? Because they're like, the guy sits down meditating, becomes aware that it's mind moving, like they realize their mind, but they identify with what their mind can do. That means there's a difference between identifying with your ability and being able. You could be able and not identify with your ability. Do you know, like, when I walk around in the world, I'm not famous, so nobody knows that I have an ability to give talks, for example. You know, or I'm a Plat 2 Xerath player. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was interesting. And of course, you'll be like, it was a silly lecture, man, on very serious topic. It was a very serious lecture on silliness. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. One last thing I do want to say before I end off. In reality, what do you do when you're confronted with an unknown world? Okay? You get to know it. But you also have to get to know that how you've gotten to know it is not the only way you can know it. And then when you notice the unknown, you notice all the things you're not doing. I'll give you an example in this game, League of Legends, where I've kind of like mastered playing one character in there, right? As being that player, I can tell you that the way I improved and others didn't. So, I have friends and family who play this game as well. It's a multiplayer game, and the reason why I feel I managed to reach a status in this game that others didn't, and millions of people haven't either, right? is simply because I went and saw how the best players in the game are playing. That's it. And then the contrast was mind blowing. All the noobs in the game were chasing kills, and they were just trying to have fun. And then the people actually ranking up in the game were not playing the game for fun. It was a different fun. It was more like it was an advanced form of fun, you know? But they played it with strategy, with specific goals, right? And I'm at a point right now where I can see a beginner player in, like, for example, League of Legends, and completely tell them all the mistakes they've made, because my mind has a reference for the professional, how professionals play the game, right? And even though I'm not a professional player, I managed to understand what they were doing. I managed to understand what they are not doing in this place. And then the update occurred when I did the thing that wasn't being done, right? And what's fascinating is that your decisions are not just they change you, they also change how you interpret meaning. So be very careful. This world is one of those things where every day you wake up, you're not going to be the same person. When you go back to sleep, you've seen something more. You've understood something more. The meaning has changed. And from some level, you could look at me and be like, yo, this guy's smart. He's made his existential search for meaning in reality his podcast. That means if I was to wake up every day and be like, where am I? What is this? Nobody knows. We got to figure this out. Instead I've formulated that into a sort of podcast format, right? But in reality, it's a search for meaning because of the shocking realization everybody's acting, and because we're temporary, we don't need to know what the truth is. We just need to get through it somehow. For me, meaning is important. That means it's a sin. Like, let me tell you what they told me as a kid about reality, even though I was about to end the talk. What they told me about reality and what changed from that. First of all, the world is not the world. They told me this is reality. It's not reality. Okay, they told me this is true. No, it's simulated. Okay? They talked about happiness. No, happiness is simulation, abundant simulation, being simulated with abundance, right? Or after successfully having something, right? Like somebody defined happiness as like, yo, man, there is no like doing something to be happy specifically. The only thing is like you live through life and then you look back at how far you've come and you smile, and that's happiness, yo. And I was like, all right, then there's something more here we need to look for. And for me, if they tell me, bro, imagine like all the billionaires gathered around and they came up to me and they're like, yo, Mr. Within, here, $1 billion, bro. Do you know? Like, we can give you happiness, we can give you comfort, safety, luxury, all of this. What do you want from reality, Mr. Within? And I would look at him and I'm like, guys, it's all advancement. We're wasting time. Everything has to advance, but you don't advance unless you have a reference point for an more advanced way of living. And if I did not, in my inner realms, in my mind, have visions of more advanced ways civilization is possible, I would not be talking about advanced civilizations, right? That means the mind is forcing me. I have no choice. I've seen it. I've seen it behind my eyes, that this is not the most advanced human civilization. This is not the most advanced experience of the human body. Right now, I can move my hands and legs. I'm not conscious of every cell that's moving in my body. I don't say I have like this many cells in like my index finger. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm identifying with the surface of reality. Yet the depth is where the force for it happening is arising. And the depth of reality, the biggest thing to wrap your head around in this world, is that it has an owner. And the owner is beyond human. And it's beyond human logic. Do you know what that means? We're like employees waiting for the manager. But, excuse me, We're employees. There's even managers in this realm. We're literally users in a system, wondering why the system admin has placed us here, and why the system admin has placed moderators. So if they tell me, yo, why didn't God just create the human species and humans to test each other? Why did God create lesser forms of being and higher forms of being? Because as a Muslim, you're not living in a physical reality. As a Muslim, you're acknowledging different beings. So if you ask me right now, hey, are you in a world with just humans and human imagination? I'll be like, no. We are actually, at least as a Muslim, in the Holy Quran, there's a very important view that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the system admin that has no equivalent partner, created mankind and jinn kind, I'll explain this, for the sole purpose of worshiping him. And why didn't that phrase say angel kind? Because angels are always, they're beings designed to worship truth. That means when they say somebody's an angel, they have lived in accordance to truth. Do you know that's angelic state of consciousness? For example, when I see like people, like the media makes Muslims appear as very violent people, but man, if you understood, like it's the most opposite. They found the most peaceful beings, and let me tell you, peaceful. A Muslim is a soul, is not a book. Keep that in mind. It's a soul that makes decision and is being tested. That means a Muslim can go to another Muslim and tell that Muslim, you're not being Muslim correctly. And they have no right to do that. Did you know? Because that person is doing shirk. If somebody comes and acts as your supreme force of guidance, okay, do you know that's like dangerous? Do you know that means a very pious religious man, do you know, by going and ridiculing, like imagine somebody who is is like, imagine you go and, how do I explain this to you? You cannot act like the system admin if you are not the system admin. Religious piety is a relationship with the system admin, not a relationship with other human beings. You are not Muslim because you want to be with other Muslims. No. You are Muslim because this world has a system administrator, and the system admin cannot be conceived, is unconditional. Its attributes are infinite. That means they're like, this being is so incomprehensible that it has all knowledge, all power, all mercy. That means, can you imagine an all-merciful person? I can't. Do you know? Can you imagine an all-knowing person? I can't. Can you imagine an all-powerful person? I can't. That means all-powerful means all-powerful in all conditions. It is the absolute. The absolute archetype of reality is beyond reality. It's another way of saying the creator of the world is not limited to the world. And if you go and limit someone by acting like the creator of the world, that's a sin. Now, Muslims, I will say this because I feel like I'm speaking to them as well, right? In the sense that you're listening to a Muslim that in 2023 I consciously became, that means it was proven to me that there's a system admin here, okay? But I'm trying to tell you that shirk includes worshiping yourself as well. When in Islam it says God has no counterpart, no equivalent, if I assume I'm the highest intelligence, I am acting like God. To be Muslim means you have submitted your ego It means you have understood the limitations of human living, and now you're ready to live along the true presence of the system. For me, this discussion of truth, at some point it changed to, yo, man, we're all simulated beings inside a simulation, and I have to find the original world. Even though the Holy Quran says everything that was simulated returns back to the original. So the long-term solution is there. In the long term, there's nothing to fear about. Reality was in an original state. A simulated state arose. The simulated state returns to the original. However, it's what's being done. That means in the same way a human soul, a human body, a formed, embodied human is being tested inside a simulation from the beginning of their life to the end of their life. The simulated world is being tested, and you're not being tested to just exist. You're being tested on how you activate, how your life force activates the form of your life, or your life form. Anyways, guys, there's more to reality always. The biggest thing you should take away is that you're actually in an unknown place. Everybody's playing some ancient story games, right? Like in the sense of like the story of humanity, right? This world also has a system power, a system administrator, an original power. If you ask me, all right, Mr. Within, let's say we agree with you, it's a simulation. How do you get out of the simulation? Honestly, this is the hard part, and I think, in quotations, enlightened, really actually enlightened person knows this. You're at the mercy of the system admin. You don't get out of this simulation by typing a specific passcode in reality and it just activates or unlocks. You have to be conscious. Like I want you to imagine it's like this. Imagine the world is a classroom. We're all students, every human being. There's a teacher. The teacher is not in the classroom, but there's cameras everywhere, even in the students' eyes, seeing everything, right? And the teacher is in the classroom. Excuse me, not even cameras. The teacher is in the classroom, but the teacher is invisible. Imagine is wearing an invisibility cloak or something, invisibility suit, right? And the teachers is just the kids are in the classroom. Oh my God, this would 100% happen, right? So imagine invisibility suit is popular. There's kids in a classroom, first class of their grade, right? They don't even know what the teachers look like, and the teacher wears an invisibility suit and goes into the classroom and silently is there, and all the kids are goofing around, and suddenly steps out of invisibility and starts writing on the blackboard. While writing on the blackboard, it's like, steps out of invisibility. I mean, at that point there wouldn't be blackboards. For me, I thought like the evolution of the educational system is a movie theater in the future. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Just appreciate that reality can be very seriously, specific in meaning and harsh, or it can be silly. In the sense that, nobody knows what they're doing, but they're all doing something, and all right, let's play along. But in reality, what do we do with the depth of actually engaging in unknown reality? The power the unknown gives you is to know again. No one knew. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.